Well, many a young girl has dreamed of being a princess. Well, Jennifer Beckham actually became one. I know she did. Take a look.
I saw Cinderella go by in her stagecoach. She looked out the right side of her window and she waved, and when she did, I snapped a picture. I looked up at my mom and I said, "Mom, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a princess." During my college years, I auditioned for Disney, and I was hired on to be the princess characters of Cinderella, Snow White, Mary Poppins, Belle, and Sleeping Beauty. And while all of that was a wonderful dream come true, it spiraled out of control into my worst nightmare. I had suicidal thoughts, and I was in complete depression with an eating disorder that nearly took my life.
Wow, what an interesting lead-in. So please welcome to the 700 Club, Jennifer Beckham. Jennifer,
Thank you.
so good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, I was going to tease you when we first started to say, okay, if you were, Snow White and Cinderella, what are the different waves?
Snow White?
Yeah.
Snow White played with dwarves, so of course she was just fun all the time.
Yeah.
And sorry to disappoint, but the whole Cinderella thing was not the Princess Di. It was just the excited to be there, kind of washing a window, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you know what was so fun is we were in the back talking, and I was kind of joking with you about the different characters and about the different waves, and I thought it was so neat that you had to play these different characters, but actually there was some pressure associated with it. Before we even get to the pressure, let's talk about how you became Cinderella.
Well, I was hired during my college years, and, I was hired to be Cinderella, Snow White, Mary Poppins, Belle, and Sleeping Beauty. And I always kind of make the joke of the day was that I was the Puerto Rican Cinderella, because honestly, you don't put blonde hair on top of this brown skin.
Yeah.
There was never a point, honestly, that I can say that I stepped into that costume and looked in the mirror and went, oh, yeah, I belong here.
Yeah.
I didn't belong here. So I was hired, by Disney. I was working at MGM Studios, which is now Hollywood Studios in Orlando. And then they hired me to play the princess characters over there in Japan. So it was an opportunity of a lifetime, but God had something else in mind other than just to be this little Disney princess.
Well, I think that's something that a lot of girls look at. We've all seen the fairy tale, and we always say, I would love to be like Cinderella or Snow White or this or that. You had that opportunity, but it wasn't what you thought it was going to be like.
No, it wasn't. I was expecting that as my destiny to fulfill me. When I got up on top of that float, I thought it would all come together. I thought that I would feel like the person and the people that I was portraying every day, all the princess characters. But my life had actually, gone down into the pit and was just awful in that moment. So I was literally living what I felt to be a double life. I would dress up like this Disney princess during the day, and then the costume would come off, the makeup would come off, and I would look in the mirror, and at night I was a bulimic looking for love in all the wrong places. So it wasn't as wonderful and magical, but it's because really life had happened. From the time that I had that dream when I was 7 to the time that I was hired by Disney, life had happened. Family illnesses, father dying of cancer for 2.5 years. A lot of mental illness within our family. So life had happened, and as a result, I was kind of always chasing that next thing, that if I could just get there, then I'd be happy. And I did that from the age of 14 after my dad passed away up into the time that I got up on top of that float. And I remember standing up there for the first time, and I remember looking around and thinking, I don't feel any different. I don't feel any different. My life is the same. When is it all going to just change me? And, that's when the reality check hit. And thankfully, I had 2 little girls that were on cast with me that invited me to a Billy Graham crusade. And that's where my life completely turned around.
Wow. Before we get to that change, how did you feel about yourself? Here you are. You've got this persona. You've got the waves. You've got the beauty, obviously. But how did you feel about yourself?
No, I just... empty, alone, like everybody was always talking about me, like nobody liked me. And I know that the women even watching this show today, listening to that, sometimes we look at somebody that we think shouldn't have any issues, and we almost roll our eyes and go, oh, you have nothing to worry about. But we all have our own insecurities, our own problems, our own issues. And depending on what you've walked through already through life, you've got some holes in your heart. And that's what I felt like. I just felt empty. I felt alone. I could be standing in a room full of 1,000 people and still feel completely alone.
What was the root issue? What was the root issue that brought about those feelings and those emotions of insecurity?
Yeah, well, there's always a why behind the what. And mine, I can see in school having a lot of issues with girls. I don't know any woman that hasn't had problems with women, with girls. So I think it started way back then, and then watching my father, die. Yeah, I was very bullied, and I think we all are to a certain extent. But I remember one specific instance when my father was dying of cancer. After I was gone for that week for the funeral and whatnot, I came back to school, and I remember nobody speaking with me. Nobody spoke to me in the halls. Nobody talked to me. Nobody spoke to me at softball practice. And I come to find out that a lot of the girls had decided that I was getting way too much attention with my dad having died, that they all decided that I didn't need any more attention and that nobody should speak with me and speak to me at all. And so, you know, just those things that kind of just rip open your heart and just make you feel like you're kind of that outcast. And when I got to Disney, I really felt the same way. And I was very hurting with my father, but I didn't like how I was feeling. I was 14. I didn't have anybody to speak with about that. And so what I did was what we all do. I just ran to anything to self-medicate, to take away the pain just for a moment.
Yeah.
And for me, that was, you know, that was a lot of hurtful things, bad relationships, you know.
Let's turn that corner.
Yeah.
Take me from the challenging time to really you coming into the heart and mind and soul of Jesus Christ and receiving him as your Savior, and how that started to change your path. Tell me about that.
Well, I was initially saved there at a Billy Graham crusade in Japan while I was being those princess characters. Then when that euphoric high went away and it wasn't the quick fix that I was looking for, I didn't realize that what was done on the inside of me had to work itself out to the outside of me, that I had issues that I still needed to be delivered from, that I had insecurities, that I had belief systems that were completely tweaked, and that I needed to turn to God, with the Word of God, to actually replace those old mindsets with some new ones. So as I began to do that, and God began to work on those areas of me that needed to change, which is what Get Over Yourself really is about. It's the heartbeat of my life, is when God spoke to me and said, it's time to get over yourself. It's time to get over your pain, your past, your insecurities, all those things that keep you so stuck in life, because I need to use you, but I can't use you like this.
Yeah, yeah. You have a couple principles, and we only have a couple minutes left. What are maybe one or two principles that you learned that the Lord taught you that really broke out that old shell to help you walk into that new man?
Well, it actually happened there at Disney. It was a moment where my supervisor, had come to me, saw that my life behind the scenes was very different than the life, that I was portraying on the stage. And he came to me at one moment, and we had this exchange, and it's in the book. We had this exchange, and he looked at me and he said, "What's going on with you?" And I exploded on him, and I said, I don't feel like being here today, Tommy. I don't feel like I'm pretty. I don't feel like a princess. And he spoke these words, and God used them and showed me how to walk out of my issues, and that was this. He said, "Whoever asked you to feel, you were chosen to be a princess. Now go, wash your face, get a new attitude, go put on your clothes and go be Cinderella, because nobody ever asked you to feel anything." And that was the exchange from my boss there at Disney. But come to find out 14 years later, when I was crying out to God saying, "God, I can't stand me. Help me, deliver me. Whatever it is you need to do in me, do it." And he brought those words back to me, and he said, walk those out. Walk those 7 principles out. Find out how to walk by faith instead of by feelings. What does it mean to be chosen? Go back to your past. And use those things, get beyond those things so you can move on and do some great things for me.
Well, I tell you what, you're doing some great things right now. You're speaking all over, and you talk about the 7 principles. You hit one. So if you want to know the 6 other principles, you got to get Jennifer's book. It's called Get Over Yourself, and you can find it wherever books are sold. It's a great title, and I tell you what, I think every woman, every girl, every person who has some issues and they want to tear those issues off and walk into that new man, this is the book to get. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And there's a website?
The website, getoveryourselfnow.com. It's as easy as it comes.
Fantastic. Thank you,
for having me.
Jennifer.
Thanks.
Absolutely.